gallons of sap for 1 gallon of syrup is kind of what you're targeting. You know, if you're capping the trees that are not maple, it might be 50 to 1 or 60 to 1. I mean, you can do box elder, you can do hickory, you can do all kinds of different ones. So it's just, the sweetest trees is the maple tree, especially the sugar maple. So those that are doing it for money, they're planting nothing but sugar maples. It's the highest content of sugar.
Box elder trees. You can plant box elder. Oh, wow. Oh, there's sap lines running all over.
Yep, sap lines. That's what that is.
That's what those are. Look at how big they are. That's your electronics, new age sap collectors.
I've not heard of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I've not heard of that. So.
That's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yep, so that's the sap coming in.
Come check it out.
Yep, so the sap's being pulled into here. And then through gravity, it goes into here. Now in here, I've got a float, like you do any other type of pump system. And once it gets so full, this fluid will come up and releases the pressure and it'll drain into here. Now this is already getting close, so I'm gonna make it work. So this is gonna spin, it cuts the suction off.
Oh my!
And then when it turns back around, it creates the suction back. And then we start pulling it back through the tree. This is just a secondary extractor because we can't get any fluid in the pump. It'll ruin the pump. So last Thursday, I pulled about 100 gallons through this system.
Wow.
So each time it dumps is somewhere around a half gallon. And if you look here, so you see the kind of the sap gurgle in there?
Yeah.
But there's actually quite a bit of suction.
Oh wow!
Now look, the sap's already coming out of the hole. 89. I've got 89 taps.
Wow.
Being pulled by the system.
And you get a tracked vehicle now.
That's a great idea.
So you can go over this rough terrain
What a great idea.
in your wheelchair.
I saw that for a Jeep.
The wheelchair locks in there.
Drive vehicle.
Yes.
It's got tracks like a tank where you can go on a trail. That's pretty darn cool.
Awesome.
That is pretty cool.
I wonder if I could just sit on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's your dark color.
This is 11.
How much is this?
This is 10.36. Enjoy, put it
Oh,
in.
Harris Sugar Bush. It's from Greencastle, Indiana.
Yep.
And Harris Sugar Bush partnered to craft the Shelburne blend.
There is more of this up at the house if you want to purchase up at the house when you're done with it.
Hey, look at your mugs.
Oh wow! Those are neat. Cool. I love the glaze on that.
Yep, I like that.
Oh, look at. See, look
National
at maple
Park.
sugar candy.
Yep. Next one of your favorites.
Yep, $12. Nice big bag of
That
it
ain't
too.
bad for that either.
No, look at this maple water. We're gonna have to try some of that. Maple water. Less sugar than coconut water.
That's good.
More manganese than a cup of kale. Huh.
There's one starting right now with Ranger Julie's.
30 calories for one bottle. 8 grams of carbs in one bottle. That's really cool.
I like these mugs though. Mugs are neat.
And then you fill this out.
And look at maple sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Maple pecan crunch. South Bend Chocolate Company. That looks yummy.
Yeah, smaller bags too of maple
Oh
candy.
yeah, $3.
Yep.
Is anybody here for the first time? Is anybody here at the park for the first time? Yeah. Well, welcome back. It is our 42nd year of doing Maple Sugar Times here at the Indiana Dunes National Park. My name is Ranger Rodriguez, and we're going to take about an hour tour of the Maple Sugar Times. It's about a quarter mile of a trail, and we'll look at different stops and everything. So let's get started. How do we identify a maple tree? You know, the easy thing is you're a hockey fan, think of the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Canada national flag, the red and the white and then that big red maple leaf. So its leaves are probably the easiest way to identify a maple tree. So, you know, just looking up, well, that didn't work. You know, it's not late enough for leaves, so we've got to use other ways during this time to be able to identify. Like here's a sugar maple right here. We can look at its bark. Or one of the ways that I like identifying is maples are one of the few trees that have opposite branches. Most trees tend to have offset branches, but maples are pretty even. So that's one way I try to identify. And growing up, I'm a region rat. Lake County, Hammond, East Chicago. We had a couple big maples in our backyard. Me and my brother used to love climbing all the way to the top, hanging up there, feeling the breezes. They were easy to climb because it was always, you know, you always knew where the hands were and where your feet were. It was always really even. Your feet weren't cocked. It was nice and even. Much to my mother's dismay, as she would yell for me, "Mijo, get down, get down." We were like, "What?" You know. And then it was always like, "Are you going to go down first?" I don't know, Mom. Mom's mad at you. You know, you go down first. You know. We flip coins, figure it out. So, but yeah, obtaining it within the maple. But then, like I said, the natives, and 350 years ago, you guys would have very different names. You would have names that would probably be attributed to nature, right? You would have recently migrated from the south. We'll talk about that when we get to our first site. And the natives would have done, like I said, many different trees. But as time goes on, we learn why. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a walk backward through time at the evolution of obtaining sap and maple sap to make syrup, and what peoples did it. Where did they do it? How did they do it? And how it developed into our, you know, our current product that we like now, you know, from absolute, like what they're selling in there, real maple cream, maple butter, maple syrup. Here we are at the pre-contact site. I heard a mom telling a couple kids, they got the Junior Ranger booklet about the natives. The natives would have been here 350 years ago, Potawatomis, Potawatomis. They would have migrated now in late February, early March, from the Kankakee, the Everglades of the north, the Kankakee area. They would have migrated back up north. They got here. No leaves, no fruits, no nuts, no berries. Everything has to eat and drink water, whether you're a plant or an animal, or you die, right? I mean, you take a while before you starve. So all the migrating animals might not have returned yet either. So food's a little scarce. Here is their sugar bush, which is what they would have called the area that they would have been tapping. Now, we're not 100% sure as to how they did it, but one way that has been told is making a slight marking in the tree and then letting it come out, being caught by a, and here's a question for the Junior Ranger. Put it on the ground. Made out of birch. A birch basket. A little mukak. Mukak. There you go. Mukak. A mukak. Like cock-a-doodle-doo with a moo in front. Mukak. Yep. And they would use that in order to catch it and store it and transport it. Because once it was up here and they established it, it was about a 6-week, maybe a month process, depending upon the temperatures. Temperature is very important because you need cool nights and warmer days like today for that sap to run up and down the tree. So once this is established, the children would be doing chores. The women in a lot of tribes would be the head of it. The men would be out trying to hunt what little there is to obtain. Or maybe just hiding because the women were doing the chores and taking care of things, and we should just go to the garage or stay out of the way because, hey, they're in charge. They don't need us around to tell them what to do. They got it taken care of, right? So things don't change that much over time. Clothing and technology changes, but yeah. So they were cooking, and one of the ways they would cook is the fire, the hot stones, and then the troughs that were made out of the different parts of the tree.
stone axe, make a canoe, cut down a tree, make a wooden bowl. Long, difficult, not easy, but this is very accurate. Think of the Chicago Blackhawks. Anybody familiar with their jersey? On their shoulders, that C and those two stone tomahawks. That is a very authentic representation. It wouldn't have been metal. It would have been a stone thing. So they would have made those implements. Everything in their world was this nature. Their Target, their Walmart, their Kohl's, their JCPenney, their Family Express. That was all out there. Everything they needed to eat, to clothe themselves, to have shelter, to have tools or food, they obtained from their nature. Although stuck in the Stone Age, their ability to incorporate Mother Nature to allow them to live and thrive amazes me. I go home after a day like yesterday. It was windy, it was very cold. I went home, turned up the furnace. Beep, 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 beep. Something in the microwave, I don't know what it was. It was maybe a hungry man, this or that. You know, I made a fire in the fireplace. I had a blanket. It was very wonderful. But they didn't. And they did excellent with what they had. And their knowledge of trees and fruits and berries and plants is just amazing with what limited technology they had. So Seth here is going to show us with the hot stones how they would have been placed in that sack as it was gathered and how they would cook it off. We need 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. Now the natives didn't make syrup, but they still cooked it to create sugar. Because sugar is one way to make a dentist rich, but it's also a source of food, right? It'll give us calories and maybe sustain us for a month until some of the plants start yielding, some more of the animals come back. Because back then, not only a lot more animals, but think of the predators: mountain lions, wolves, bears, much larger predators, foxes, bison. That's a black bear head, white-tailed deer. Those are all prevalent animals. Now the largest mammal in our park is that white-tailed deer, but not really any predators anymore. So they had to think about that. A young man in my first tour asked me, hey, how did they get rid of those predators if they attacked? Well, they didn't have guns. They would have to use spears, which is very courageous because that means they have to get really close to that predator. So this is a pre-contact site. Anybody smelling cooking marshmallows? They might sell chocolate and graham crackers at the contact center or cotton candy at the fair. We're smelling that sugar cooking, right? And they're going to be eating that. They're going to be trading that. This is one way they would store it and freeze it off. Because they did trade it. We have evidence, archaeological evidence, that they traded as far as the Rockies to the Pueblo people. How are you crossing the Mississippi? I mean, that's just a far way to go. Because you don't have horses. You're walking, and you still got to get across the Mississippi. Holy smokes. That's what I'm saying. Their ability to know and incorporate their environment just impresses the whatever out of me. And we know that there was probably trade because we have evidence of obsidian. Obsidian's a black, volcanic, glassy rock. It's not found anywhere near here. It is found by the Rockies, where the Pueblos are. Trade back and forth, because everyone liked having this sweet, good sugar for food. Different furs, even those turkey feathers, are a good way to fan the fire, fan the flames, because, every bit of an animal would have been used. Or if it's hot, son, come here and fan me. I'm hot. I've been cooking by the fire a lot. And, yeah. So we got beaver, fox. This is a bison, like I said, a white-tailed deer. The head of a black bear. All these kind of animals here. Question for the kids. Here we have our shelter, a wigwam made mostly out of cattail reeds, right? And only one entrance, little small, very quick to build, a wigwam. Does that sort of look like the shape of an igloo?
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of the same shape, except an igloo with the natives up north, the Eskimos or the Aleutian, the Alouettes, they used their nature, and their nature had a lot of what? Yeah, snow and ice. So they used that to build their shelter. Here we have a lot of reeds along the rivers and streams, and cacti. They use that. So we're incorporating and utilizing our nature to provide our clothing, our food, our shelter, so that we can not only survive, but thrive. And the natives back then did that. And one of the ways they did in the early spring, when they migrated north from the Kankakee, or they might have called it the Tiwawakiki River, was obtaining sap from trees, converting it into sugar for food. And they would do that maybe give or take a month. Why now, and what's going on here? Until I started becoming a federal park ranger here at the national parks, I did not realize that maple syrup is only, we are at the southern western corner of the region of the world that can make maple syrup. Only from here going east to like New York, north to Vermont, and up to Montreal, like a big triangle, is the only area of the world that has not only maple trees, because a lot of the world has maple trees, but the temperatures. A lot of the world will have the right temperatures, but we have both. And the temperature has to consistently be below freezing at nights and about the temperature it is today, maybe 40-ish, in order for that sap to run up and down the tree, because water or liquid is weird in its chemical reaction. Most things constrict when they freeze, but water expands. So if that sap were to remain in the tree at night, it would basically, bam, basically blow out the cells, blow out the tree. It has to get back into the root system and then come back up. So it's during this time that once it starts flowing, you just got to keep at it 24/7. The sugar bush of the natives would be like that, this site and everything. So once it starts flowing, you have to really stay on top of it. Not every year yields. Last year we hardly got anything, but this year we have a little over 100 trees tapped. We have about 120 buckets, and we've already gotten over 100 gallons of sap. That seems like a lot, but we need 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. So I think after today we might, we have like 3 gallons of syrup made already, and we are selling some of the syrup that is in either the house or the contact station. I think it's the contact station. Actually has a percentage of Indiana Dunes National Park sap in it. Once the temperature changes and gets too warm, like at night, it will not give any more sap. Because sap is sugar, energy, right? What is the flower of the maple tree? What is the flower of it? What is the flower of the maple? Did you say maple leaf? Say yes. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, the maple leaf. Very, very good. Yeah, the leaf. So we see those little buds that look like vanilla ice cream cones a little bit on maple trees. They have that unique shape. Well, eventually that energy has to go to feed for the bud to open up and become the flower, which is the leaf. So once that happens, no matter how many taps we put in, it won't give us any out. It's taking it up there. It's needing that energy from the root to channel, to feed, and give us the pretty leaf. So, yeah. Well, let's go to the next site, and we are now progressing to 1850s, roughly the middle of the 1800s, and what is happening.
Can you overtap a tree?
Yes.
Yeah, we can have more than 2, I think.
Now, we won't tap any trees, and the industry won't, unless they're about a foot in diameter. And we only go in about an inch and a quarter, right below the dermal or the bark layer, the skin. Sort of like if anyone's had their blood drawn, right? Just goes in a bit, suck out some juice, close you back up, little puncture wound. Within a few days, bam, you're good, right? A mosquito bite. Rather have a mosquito bite than a bite by a fly. I'd rather have a bite by a fly than get stung by a bee or a wasp. It's all the size of that needle, right? Ouch! Yeah, so yeah, the health of the tree is very important to the industry because we want that tree to keep giving. We have Asher. Yeah, okay, we have Asher and Mark. They're going to talk a little bit about what's going on here, but before they do, kids, tell me what you're seeing here that you didn't see over there. Give me some things that you're seeing here that you didn't see at the pre-contact site. What you seeing with your ojos? Tell me a couple things. Anybody? Just shout it out.
Pots.
Pots. Yeah, pots are made of
Metal.
metal, right? Yeah. What do we got over there? Anybody over there? What else we seeing? What do we see? We're seeing pots and we're seeing, huh? Smoke. We're seeing a constant fire, right? We're seeing more fire. We're seeing a better shelter. We're seeing, what do we got here? Do we have the same kind of tools here as over there?
No.
What do we see?
Glass.
Glass. We can store liquid in glass, can't we? What else do we see here? You know, did they have wooden baskets, wooden bowls? No. Did they have potter? They had some clay potter. How about this? A metal storage. Maybe we could freeze it. Remember, it was in that little piece of wood with those cuts outs. Now cuts out. What kind of word is that? A metal pan, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna let Asher talk a little bit about this. And remember the ratio: 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. They'll talk exactly about that.
Huge
this
kettle.
started, this was a continuous process. It was anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months, depending on the weather. But this was a cash, it was good as dealing with cash. The families had to do it. Whatever they had on the farm, whatever they had to manufacture itself. Sometimes their own farm. Certainly the hive. So anyway, the sap came out of the trees. And what's in the trees? In the sap is primarily water. About 2% of it is sugar. That's the nourishment that goes up into the limbs to make the leaves. Right now, the tree is going to start making leaves. And it requires the stuff flowing up from the ground, through the trees, into the limbs. And we have virtually water. Because water will flow through capillary action up. So it's just a clear fluid now, and potentially after this boils off, this water is boiling off, like you see on your stove in your kitchen, and it gets to a point where it's transferred into this pot, where it's half that. This is a 20-gallon pot. And now, so the color is beginning to change. The sugar is coming out and beginning to caramelize. When you see the caramel candy, that's where it's beginning to get to where it's being useful. But not there yet by a long shot. So once it boils down, the more management is put into this pot. And then what's then we're going to see something. Now, you can see it's getting darker. And we're getting pretty close to what we really want. And to really see if it's progressing to where we want to turn it into a syrup, or even further into sugar, this is the high-tech manufacture of this. Great deal of research and development went into this, and that had to be it was manufactured here. So that's what you had to get to deal with. So we'll stick it in here. Oh, almost. You see, it's holding a film, and we're getting that to test it. It's getting pretty close to what the pioneers or the settlers wanted, getting down to a syrup, which would get stored into a bucket, a tin pan, or a glass jar.
There's the shelter. You're staying there. But now it's not a source of necessity. It's a source of a commodity. We're selling it. We're trading it. We're adding some cash flow to our family's budget. And you're staying out here maybe a month, maybe 3 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. Meals, you don't even leave for meals. Meals are being delivered to you, not by Jimmy John's, but probably by your family, right? And probably not freaky fast either, but fast enough. And like Asher said, different ways we can now store it because it's liquid. You know, quart, jar, ball glass jars, metal scoops, nice clay. They had clay over there, you know, terracotta jars. It's a gallon, right? Pour the whole thing in there. And when it's done, maybe you can play with the darlings in some bluegrass band. Buckets, this, so that we can trade or maybe freeze it instead of having glass and it could maybe break, because they would trade and sell along the southern shoreline of Lake Michigan. But one interesting thing I found out that they believe happened, the abolitionists in this era, remember it's the mid-1800s, our country is literally being rendered, being torn apart, right, by slavery. The southern area of the country was now producing sugar cane, you know, use it for sweetener, for molasses, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, the Gulf Coast area. Numbers of people up here would buy this for their sweetener. It cost more, but it was more a way of a protest to not support that way of doing things. So that was sort of cool to find out that, I don't know how large it was, but there was some of that activity going on here in this area. You know, so I'm like, hey, good to be a region rat.
There's different styles. Lots of metal ones.
Yep.
Now they're going to like a plastic.
Yeah.
1959 is when they started the gathering pipeline system. Wow.
Yep. That's what right there is what we seen earlier.
Yeah, that's really cool. I keep hearing cranes.
I keep hearing cranes too.
Over that way.
Right up there. There's a whole bunch of them.
Oh yeah, I see them up there.
There's a whole bunch of them up there flying around. I thought I heard them.
Yeah.
That's here's how it would. That there's how it would look. Then they put a cap over it to keep the debris out.
We're within 5 minutes of taking it off, and I can't have a room full of people when we do that.
Ah, okay, all right. Well, let's gather up in here, and we'll watch them gather up. There's plenty of room. They are changing either wood or they're draining off. So in there, they would be comfortable. They'd be warm. They'd be dry. That little tool, that little blow bubble thing that Asher used, they now use something that's called a hydrometer. It's very similar to a thermometer, and it gives it to a higher level of precision. But like I said, that little stick is quite accurate. Those of you that can see through the steam, they've got some bottles that are hanging. Water boils at 212 Fahrenheit.
It smells like marshmallow.
The finished maple, yeah, you smell that again, right? The finished maple syrup comes off at 217 degrees, even higher than boiling water. So if we were to use those glass jars, let's say they were on the shelf by the window, put something in it that's 219, it might just shatter it. So they're preheating the stove. They're preheating the glass jars to get them ready. They also would filter off. The natives would filter off somewhat. The settlers would do that too, but we can almost filter everything off. Because, you know, think of it. We like our maple syrup to be smooth, consistent, feels good in our mouth, tastes good, right? Well, technology, because all those essential minerals, vitamins, nutrients are filtered out. So via technology, most days, Ranger Rodriguez, Mr. Rodriguez now buys me the Centrum Silver. I put this in my body because I've taken out via technology to have it really be good. So I put it back in via technology. So I get the best of both worlds, the best of both worlds. Anybody have any questions, or you want to just look in there? I'm sorry.
Big old hot day. Want me to do one of the panels?
They're just working there. Oh, they had 4 different grades that the Schellbergs would sell. Because when the Schellbergs did this in roughly 1935, they only did it for about 15 years, and then they stopped. One of their customers, remember the old Chicago candy company, Brock's Candy? That was one of their customers. They would buy the finest, which is the clearest, the Vermont finest, which is the most expensive, and they would use that syrup, sugar, to make some of their chocolate. You know, a lot of chocolatiers will go and buy that one. There's 3 other grades. They're a little darker, darker, and darkest, and they cost less. But it's that clear. I think that's the first part that comes off the drain when they drain it. So.
And if you're really good when you get to the kitchen, they're gonna give you a cookie that has that maple cream inside of it, which is what the candy Brock made. And if you go to Maine, I think you can still buy maple cream. And Vermont, they don't sell it out of Chicago, even though Brock is still headquartered in Chicago.
Thank you, Angel. So on that note, sorry we couldn't get it, but we got a good chance to see it in its operation. Let's go on to the side here and talk a little bit, and then make our way up to the Schellberg house.
That's not my bag. Well, I'll be nice. Wait for cookies to happen. Did you get my call at all? I called you twice. No.
I turned my volume on. I got part of the shirt and the program.
Smell wood smoke and the maple sugar. It's such a good smell.
You can smell the cedar. They're using the rejected cedar shakes that were up for the roof for the farmers. The ones that couldn't be used. Again, if you don't throw anything away, you recycle it, find another,
reuse.
repurpose it.
My direction.
It's boiling. That's where they drain it off at. Right, goes right down into there. You see it dripping into the bottle.
Right. You want to see something about what's also in the syrup?
Okay, you gonna be here tomorrow? Next Saturday. Okay, I'll be here
Yeah,
next.
things that are invisible in the syrup too. And that's what we filtered out around the corner there. See there? Is that something you're gonna put in your pancakes? It looks like sand, right? It's called sugar sand. And in fact, if you would put this on your pancakes, you would have no more teeth and grind them right down. So we feed this to the animals on the farm, the horses, the chickens, they all love to have sugar sand. Yeah, kind of like molasses, but you wouldn't want to ever eat it. It can be tasteless, really. So, okay, so let me show you something else. We use science here to figure out whether it's done or not, whether it's syrup or not. So we thought before we drew that syrup off and it went through these filters, we put some in here. This is called a hydrometer. A hydrometer will float to a certain number or a line, and then we know that it's 66% sugar. It's time to get it off. We start with 2% sugar, end up with 66.5% sugar. Getting rid of all that water. It's the same exact idea, even today. But this is science, this is a hydrometer. You're gonna learn about another more fancy instrument than the hydrometer at your next stop around the corner.
Oh, okay.
But let me show you one more thing before you go. You see how they're different colors?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. Different shades of tan, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have one here that gets you the most amount of trade goods. Remember, the Shellbrooks were here in the 30s when it was really hard. They had to have something to trade with, and they had maple syrup here that they made. This is the lightest colored maple syrup. And this is the other grade, which other grade, because you know. This is another grade of syrup. Looks more like what you're familiar with, probably, right? Which do you think you would get more goods in trade for? The lighter colored one or the darker colored one?
The dark one.
That's what everybody thinks, but that is completely wrong. Because if you were a person that's going to be baking with the syrup, because that was the sugar in those days, right? If you're going to be baking with this kind of syrup, you don't want it to discolor your food, especially if you're making candy. The Brock's family knew about that. They bought syrup, grade A fancy. The lighter it was, the more good things you got from a lighter colored syrup. The taste is the same because it's 66.5% sugar. I mean, this might have a little bit more of a flavor burst, but I like the grade A fancy. Grade A Vermont fancy, it's called. A very delicate flavor. So that's how you tell if you have good syrup or not.
Wow.
What state makes the most amount of syrup in the country? Of all the 50 states.
Probably Vermont.
You got it. Vermont is a little over Vermont. Give me another one that's up there. Will be number 2.
Maine?
Maine is number 3.
Number 3, okay.
New York.
New York, you got it. So Vermont, New York, and Maine, those are the big ones. My home state of Wisconsin was number 5 at one point, yeah. It's up
Minnesota
there.
probably has quite a
Not
bit.
Minnesota.
No?
No, you have to go to the eastern part of Minnesota. Yeah, you have to have the weather. It's all about the weather to get the sap.
Okay.
And the sugar maple trees have to like growing there. You got to have this kind of slopey land, loamy soil. And the most important thing is probably the weather. You got to have this for a month. You got to have this for a month or 6 weeks, and that's not worth your time. It's such a time-consuming process. Because you want to have the time before your sap is burning. 40 gallons of sap, 1 gallon of syrup, 8 pounds of maple sugar.
We were curious on what's the difference between this and the other 2 ways they cook.
They're all the kettle side. They were making sugar and syrup probably once they had the ball jars. Until you had the ball jars, they were probably also making sugar like the American Indians did as well. You didn't have a way to save it in the bottle. You could really save it. You save it for a day. Well, that's a day's worth of food. That's not going to get you very far.
Right.
So you have to have a way to save it. When ball jars were in Muncie, Indiana, were made in the 1860s or so, then you could save it. That's when they went more to syrup.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Come back again. Up to the house. You gotta go this way. You go to find where the sugar monitor which farmers farmed. And
Horse is going around collecting sap. Yep.
Thank you so much for coming out. You know, it was a beautiful morning. Good energy from the little ones. Great questions. I mean, yesterday could have been, it was tough being out. And today, you know, just a lovely early March day. So Ranger Rodriguez here on behalf of the Indiana Dunes National Park. Thank you so much. It's my privilege to do this for you folks on our 42nd Maple Sugar Times Tour.